I'm gonna give you the 4 best leg strengthening exercises that you can use to improve your play for field hockey, and we're gonna start right now. What's up everybody, it's Dane Miller from GarageStrength.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in becoming a better athlete, you wanna run a little faster, you wanna be more explosive, you wanna dominate playing field hockey, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you smash that notification bell so we can help you become a beast. Now, when we're talking about improving leg strength, we've got to think about when we're playing field hockey, what do we need leg strength for, right? We need it to get to a nice deep position so that if we have a block, we can hold that deep position. If we're doing a reverse pass or anything along these lines, or we need to cut really rapidly as we're dribbling down the field, we need to have really good leg strength so we can decelerate, we can plant, we can cross, we can do anything that we need to do while we're running at full speed. This leg strength is going to transfer over to tremendous play. If we can run a little bit quicker, we can have more improvement in our dynamic trunk control, we can make better plays, we can see the field a little bit clearer, we can prevent injuries, including ACL injuries, we can prevent lower back pain, we can do a lot that's going to lead to better improved skill work, which in turn is going to make our team better when we're talking about field hockey. And so it's important to recognize in the sport, a lot that happens with field hockey is we're going to see lunging with that left leg leading because of the way the stick is built. There's almost all of the striking is going to predominantly be done from that right side, okay? So coming across from that right side. So it's important to realize this can lead to serious instability. So we've got to look at other key factors behind field hockey. We've got to think about what are those key elements. We've already covered this in our strength training for field hockey. Click on this link right here, but we got to think about if we're utilizing those elements. We know that we need to have strength endurance. We know that we have to have mobility. We have to have a good, strong stability in a deep position. We know that we have to have dynamic trunk control and we have to train speed. So we have to think about those 4 key leg strengthening exercises that are going to help improve those 4 key elements. And that takes us into that 4th key exercise, and that's going to be that overhead walking lunge. Now, the reason why I love this is it's going to improve our dynamic trunk control. It's going to improve the athlete's ability to iron out any insufficiency that they might have. Field hockey players are always leading with that left leg for the most part when they're passing, when they're shooting, and that's a key concept here. So we need to make sure that we have structural integrity. An overhead walking lunge. So let's say that we're doing a 10 kilo plate overhead or a 15 kilo plate overhead, and we lunge for 3 sets of 30 seconds or 3 sets of 40 seconds, and we try to make sure that we're getting equal amount of reps on each leg. Because we're doing it for 40 or 45 seconds, that's going to improve our strength endurance. We have the plate overhead, that's going to improve our dynamic trunk control, and we're training the posterior chain, that's going to help our speed. So we're covering all bases here. That's going to also help with our hip mobility. So overhead walking lunges, I recommend 3-4 sets. Do it in a time position, 40 to 50 seconds, 40 to 60 seconds, play around with it, see which one that you feel best with and how it can convert over to the field. That 3rd key exercise that's going to help us with dominating and training towards those key elements behind strength training for field hockey is going to be a paused front squat. A lot of field hockey players tend to throw out their lower back. My wife played at Rutgers, okay? She was a Division I field hockey player, a 3-time collegiate captain at Rutgers. They finished number 14 in the country her senior year. She was a good field hockey player. One of the key factors with her is that she always ended up having lower back pain because she wasn't strong enough. She didn't know how to embrace her trunk and coordinate her trunk with her legs properly. A lot of field hockey players, because of this, tend to shy away from front squats. Front squats, if you're doing it full range of motion and you're doing it with a rapid eccentric, we might see that the athlete might lean forward. Field hockey players tend to be in that forward position, sometimes in that internally rotated position because of the way they're carrying the stick. So if we have a rapid eccentric and we're not strong enough, they tend to dump that chest forward during a front squat, and that might lead to lower back pain. But if we do it with a 2 to 3 second eccentric, so it's 1, 2, 3 down into the hole, and then we pause down there and we have our field hockey players stay nice and tight, squeeze through their belly button, squeeze in that entire back and try and really feel upright in that upright position, then we can go 1, 2, 2, pause, and drive up rapidly. And over time, as the athlete gets stronger, their hips are going to become more mobile, their ankles are going to become more mobile so they can make better cuts, they can get into the drive phase a little bit more aggressively, they can run a little bit faster, they're going to have better dynamic trunk control because of that pause position down in the hole, and they're going to have improved hip mobility so they can be a little bit better on defense. So utilize that pause front squat once or twice a week. Have a day where you go a little bit heavier, have another day where you go a little bit lighter. That's going to drastically improve your overall play in field hockey. That takes us into our second key exercise, and we're going to go back into the unilateral range. Now remember, we're talking about strength training. We're talking about traditional resistance-based training. Okay, so some of these movements, all these movements are going to be movements that we can do in the weight room. A lot of them are movements that you could even do when you're in a hotel room, wherever you're at. So one of those key exercises, that second key exercise, we're going back into the unilateral work. We're going to do a sliding Cossack squat. This is something that we can do where we start off and we do a nice, easy progression where we can do an assisted Cossack squat. Remember, field hockey players tend to have a little bit of tightness in their hip because of their constantly being in hip flexion. So we want to make sure we're going to achieve that hip flexion at a really deep position on the assisted Cossack squat. Then when we get to the top, we want to open it up a little bit. As you get a little bit more mobile on that lateral progression, now you can let go, you can do a goblet Cossack squat. And then as you do that sliding goblet Cossack squat, if you get a little bit better now, you can go to overhead position in that sliding Cossack squat to try and open up your upper back and open up your hips. So utilize the Cossack squat to improve your lateral mobility, to improve that hip mobility, and to improve the strength in your groin and that ankle mobility. So now we're going to be able to lower our hips a little bit better when we're out on the field. We're going to be able to play a little bit deeper and have a little bit more power from that deep position. That's going to help us dominate our opponents when we're playing deep in the game. Now, before we get into that number one exercise, a lot of people are struggling with the concepts behind that, the key elements behind field hockey, okay? Behind programming those 4 key elements. And that's exactly why we put together our strength training for field hockey strength training program. You can click on the link down below, head over to garagestrength.com, and you can pick up our program today to help you improve your overall strength and overall performance out on the field. And that takes us into that number one exercise. And this is an exercise that a lot of strength coaches at the NCAA collegiate level shy away from. Okay, they'll sit there and say, well, field hockey players don't need to do this. And I think it's an absolutely horrible action, okay? It's actually an inaction, and it's a way to just completely avoid coaching people. And what I believe that we need to see when we're talking about field hockey players is get a snatch grip. So we need to learn the progression behind the snatch, okay? And what we're gonna do is gonna be a simple variation. It's going to be a pull and pause below the knee for 3 seconds. We're gonna pull, pause below the knee. 1, 2, 3, and then we're gonna do a power snatch. And that's gonna help us open up our thoracic spine. That's gonna help with thoracic rotation, which is a lot of what goes into field hockey when we're doing striking, when we're passing the ball. And on top of that, a lot of field hockey players hold weak positions off the floor. So if we can hold a strong position off the floor and then pause below the knee, we're gonna pause with a decent amount of hip flexion while we're trying to sustain that strong lower back. We can use the isometric muscular action from the pause to improve the recruitment of our posterior chain into our lower back. And then now we're gonna finish nice and strong, and it's gonna train our nervous system to fire more aggressively, to recruit very, very rapidly. And that's a key component behind how strong of a ball that we hit. So if we're passing long, or if we're even trying to defend with a block, now all of a sudden we're a little bit more explosive, we can recruit more rapidly, and that's gonna enhance our overall performance. But we've gotta make sure, set the proper snatch grip, make sure that our upper back is strong enough to hold that position overhead, make sure that we can do a good overhead squat so that we have that shoulder stability when we're deeper in the hole, even though we're doing a power snatch. Make sure that we know how to make contact. When you're utilizing the power snatch, make contact off of the hip. Pause below the knee. So it's gonna be pull from the floor, pause below the knee, make contact into that power snatch. I recommend doing this 2 to 3 days a week. You can do 2 technical days just learning how to coordinate effectively, and 1 day where you can push that weight a little bit more and try and be a little bit more explosive, a little bit faster with a little bit higher load. So use all 4 of these exercises. We've got 2 bilateral, 2 unilateral movements. Use these, and if you need help, click on the link down below, head over to garagestrength.com and pick up your strength training for field hockey program today. If you want more content around field hockey, click on this card right here. Until next time, guys, peace.